Distance changes things. Even with the best intentions. The first week of break, Marcus and I texted constantly. He sent photos from Aspen, snow-covered mountains framed through picture windows, industry veterans at his father's annual photography retreat, close-ups of equipment I couldn't identify but appreciated his excitement about. I replied with amateur shots from the vintage camera he'd given me, my childhood bedroom's strange time capsule quality, Jamie's winter concert, Mom's exhausted smile after double shifts. We video called nightly, his face on my screen both reassuring and painful in its untouchable proximity. Sometimes we talked for hours. Sometimes just existed in parallel silence while he edited photos and I sketched. But during the second week, something shifted. His texts grew shorter, responses delayed. Video calls rescheduled, then cut short. When we did speak, he seemed distant, distracted. Shadows beneath his eyes deepened. New medication adjustment, he explained when I finally asked. The side effects are challenging. I tried not to worry, respecting his privacy while fighting the distance-bred paranoia that whispered he was pulling away. Meanwhile, my own secret grew heavier. The tuition deadline approached with no solution in sight. Mom worked double shifts that left her gray with exhaustion. My own part-time campus job wouldn't resume until classes did, classes I might not attend. Every conversation became a minefield of omissions. When Marcus asked about spring semester plans, I deflected. When I asked about his health, he minimized. We performed approximations of honesty while the unspoken expanded between us. On December 23rd, Marcus missed our scheduled call entirely. No text, no explanation. When I finally heard from him the next morning, his message was brief. Sorry about last night. Medical appointment ran late, fell asleep after. Talk tonight? I stared at those words, frustration and concern warring within me. Was this relationship sustainable if fundamental truths remained unshared? The question gnawed at me through Christmas Eve preparations, wrapping Jamie's gifts, helping Mom with dinner, maintaining holiday cheer while internal doubts multiplied. That night, when my phone rang, I almost didn't answer. But the sight of his name overrode my uncertainty. "Hey," I said, aiming for casual. "Hey." His voice sounded rough, tired. "Merry Christmas Eve. Are you okay?" I asked immediately. "You sound terrible." The pause. "Not great," he admitted. "The new medication protocol is hitting hard. Dad's annual gallery dinner didn't help." "I wish you'd told me." "You can't exactly help from 2,000 miles away," he said, then softened. "Sorry, that came out wrong. I'm just tired." The frustration I'd been suppressing bubbled up. "I get that. But relationships need communication, Marcus. Even about the hard stuff. Especially about the hard stuff." "You're right," he conceded. "I should have been more forthcoming." His easy agreement disarmed me. I'd prepared for resistance, not acceptance. "It's not just you," I admitted, the weight of my own secret suddenly unbearable. "I haven't been entirely honest either." "About what?" I took a deep breath. "There's a problem with next semester's tuition payment. A big one." Silence stretched between us. "How big?" he finally asked. $4,000. The number hung between us, naked and significant. "That's fixable," he said immediately. "I can help." "No." My response came sharper than intended. "That's not why I told you." "Then why did you?" "Because it's affecting us," I explained, voice tight. "Because I might not be able to come back next semester. Because I've been avoiding telling you, and it's created this distance." "Let me help," he insisted. "It's just money, Eliot. I have enough." "It's not just money," I countered. "It's inequality. It's dependency. It's changing our relationship in ways I'm not comfortable with." "But because your pride is more important than your education?" A rare edge entered his voice. "Then what we're building?" The accusation stung precisely because it contained truth. "That's not fair." "What's not fair is you making unilateral decisions about our relationship," he said. "Deciding what I'm allowed to offer, what help you're allowed to accept." "You don't understand." "I understand pride," he interrupted. I understand fear of being seen as needy. But relationships mean accepting help sometimes. Says the guy who hid his health condition for months because he didn't want to appear vulnerable. I shot back. Silence fell, heavy and charged. That was low, he finally said, voice quiet. I'm sorry, I sighed. But do you see the double standard? You want me to accept financial help while you struggle to accept emotional support. It's not the same thing. It's exactly the same, I insisted. Both require vulnerability. Both mean admitting need. His frustrated exhale carried through the connection. So we're at an impasse. You won't let me help, and I'm somehow the villain for offering. I never said villain. You didn't have to. The hurt in his voice was unmistakable. Look, maybe we should talk tomorrow when we're both calmer. The reasonable suggestion only irritated me further. Fine. Fine, he echoed. Merry Christmas, Eliot. The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my darkened screen. Our first real fight, conducted across 2,000 miles through fragile digital connection. Perfect. I tossed my phone aside, anger and regret swirling in equal measure. How had a conversation that began with honesty devolved so quickly? Why couldn't he understand that his offer, however well-intentioned, threatened the fragile equilibrium of our relationship? A knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Jamie stood in my doorway, arms crossed, expression unimpressed. That sounded less than festive, they observed. Eavesdropping is still rude, even in holiday season, I grumbled. Hard not to overhear when you're projecting your relationship drama at concert volume. They entered uninvited, settling cross-legged on my bed. Want to talk about it? Not really. Too bad. Consider it my Christmas gift to you, free younger sibling wisdom. Despite my mood, their confidence coaxed a reluctant smile. When did you become the relationship expert? Since watching you sabotage potential happiness became my unwilling hobby. They fixed me with the direct stare that always saw too much. So Marcus offered financial help and you freaked out about it? I sighed. It's complicated. It's really not, Jamie countered. He has resources. You have need. He offered to help because he cares about you. You refused because you're terrified of dependence. I'm not terrified. Please, they interrupted. You've been self-sufficient to the point of isolation since Dad left. You practically broke out in hives when Mom bought you that art set for graduation. Their accuracy was irritating. This is different. It's a lot of money, Jamie. Is it a lot to him? The question gave me pause. $4,000 represented catastrophe to our family, but to Marcus? Probably equivalent to a weekend spending money. That's not the point, I insisted. Actually, it's exactly the point. Jamie leaned forward. You're measuring his offer by your financial reality, not his. To him, it's probably like offering to buy you coffee. It would change things between us, I said, voicing my deeper fear. Only if you let it. Their expression softened. Remember when I needed the graphing calculator for advanced math? The one we couldn't afford. I nodded. I'd taken extra shifts at the local art supply store for weeks to help purchase it. You never made me feel indebted, Jamie continued. You just wanted me to have what I needed to succeed. Maybe that's how Marcus feels. Not superior, just able to help someone he cares about. Their perspective shifted something in my understanding. I remembered the quiet joy I'd felt being able to help Jamie, how their success had felt like shared victory. Was I denying Marcus that same feeling? When did you get so wise? I asked. Probably around the time you got so stubborn, they replied with a grin. Look, you don't have to accept his help. But rejecting it as automatically as you did? That's about your issues, not his offer. Our issues, I corrected. He's not exactly perfect at vulnerability either. Then maybe you both need practice, Jamie suggested. Relationships aren't balanced ledgers, Eliot. They're messy exchanges of care that never quite equal out and aren't supposed to. Their words followed me into uneasy sleep, resonating with uncomfortable truth. By Christmas morning, something had settled in my understanding. Marcus's offer deserved consideration, not reflexive rejection. But our interrupted conversation had created new barriers requiring more than text messages to dismantle. I sent a simple message, "I'm sorry about yesterday. You were trying to help and I responded poorly. Can we talk when you're free?" Hours passed without response. Mom and Jamie exchanged worried glances as I checked my phone with increasing frequency during Christmas morning traditions. By afternoon, concern had eclipsed hurt. Marcus always responded eventually, even during our recent communication struggles. When my phone finally rang around sunset, the caller ID showed Tyler, not Marcus. "Tyler?" I answered, stomach tightening with immediate concern. "What's wrong?" "Nothing catastrophic," he assured me quickly. "But Marcus asked me to call. He's been admitted to the local hospital. Severe reaction to the new medication protocol." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "Is he okay?" "Stable now," Tyler said. But his phone got left at the house in the ambulance chaos. "He didn't want you worrying when he didn't respond to your message." Relief mingled with fresh concern. "Can I talk to him?" "They've got him pretty heavily sedated," Tyler explained. "But he was clear about wanting you updated. Said to tell you he's sorry about your fight and will call when he's discharged, probably tomorrow." After Tyler's call, I sat on my childhood bed, the vintage camera Marcus had given me sitting on the nightstand like an accusation. While I'd been anger spiraling about financial pride, he'd been experiencing medical crisis. The perspective shift was jarring. Mom appeared in my doorway. "Everything okay, honey? You look pale." "Marcus is in the hospital," I explained, the words hollow in my throat. "Medication reaction." Her expression softened with immediate understanding. She sat beside me, hand warm on my shoulder. "Is it serious?" "Apparently not life-threatening," I said. "But serious enough for admission and sedation." She nodded, saying nothing but maintaining her grounding presence. "I messed up, Mom," I admitted. "He offered to help with tuition, and I reacted badly. We fought. And now he's in the hospital, and our last conversation was an argument." "Oh, Eliot." Her sigh held no judgment, only recognition. "You've always struggled with accepting help. Even as a little boy, you insisted on tying your own shoes until your fingers bled." "I want to be there," I said, the truth of it hitting me fully. "Not just talking through screens." "Then you should be," she replied simply. "But the tuition—" "We'll figure it out," she interrupted. "Your uncle called yesterday. The construction company's giving holiday bonuses. It won't cover everything, but it's a start." "You didn't mention it." "Because I know how you feel about family help," she said gently. "But sometimes, love, pride is an unaffordable luxury." Her words echoed Jamie's with eerie similarity. Had I been so transparent in my resistance, so predictable in my self-sabotage? "If Marcus offered help," she continued, "maybe it's worth considering. Not as charity, but as investment in something you're building together." "That's essentially what he said," I admitted. She smiled knowingly. "Sounds like a thoughtful young man." The next day, Christmas evening, my phone finally displayed Marcus's name. I answered immediately. "Hey," his voice sounded ragged but present. "Merry belated Christmas. How are you?" I asked, all other concerns secondary. "Discharged and medicated within an inch of consciousness," he said, attempted humor undermined by obvious exhaustion. "But better. The new protocol is officially abandoned." "I'm sorry I wasn't there," I said, meaning it completely. "You're exactly where you need to be," he countered. "With your family." "About our argument." "Can we pause that conversation?" he interrupted gently. "I'm barely coherent, and it deserves better than drug-addled attention." Disappointment warred with understanding. "Of course. But I need you to know something," he continued, voice strengthening slightly. "Nothing about how I feel has changed. If anything, this week has clarified what matters." The simple declaration loosened something in my chest. "For me too. When we're back on campus—" "That's the problem," I interrupted. "I still don't know if I can come back. The tuition situation isn't resolved." Silence stretched between us, but without the previous tension. "I have a proposition," he finally said. "Not charity, not a gift. A legitimate business arrangement. I'm listening, I said cautiously. The lighthouse photographs, he explained. The triptych. It sold for $12,000 at the Brennan Gallery. I've been trying to decide what to do with the money. I'd like to create a small scholarship for first-year artists, administered through the department. That's amazing, I said, genuinely impressed. The thing is, he continued carefully, scholarships need recipients. Would you consider being the first? $4,000 for tuition, with the understanding that someday, when you're selling your work in galleries, you'll contribute to someone else's opportunity. The offer stunned me with its elegance. Not a handout but an invitation to participate in something larger. Not dependency but community. I began, emotion catching in my throat. You don't have to answer now, he assured me. Think about it. Talk to your family. But know it's a legitimate option. After we disconnected, I sat holding the vintage camera he'd given me, turning his proposition over in my mind. It represented perfect compromise, aid that honored both his desire to help and my need for independence. The solution felt too neat, too perfect. And yet, Mom found me still sitting there minutes later. One look at my expression was apparently enough explanation. He found a way, she observed. A scholarship, I explained. Administered through the department. From the sale of his work. She nodded approvingly. Creative. Respectful. And it means you can return to finish your education. If I accept, I clarified. Her gaze sharpened. Are you really considering refusing? No, I admitted. But I'm trying to understand why I almost want to. Why accepting help feels like failure. Because your father left us financially stranded, she said with unusual directness. And you decided never to depend on anyone who could disappear. She sat beside me. But dependency and connection aren't the same thing, Eliot. Letting someone help doesn't give them control. Her insight illuminated patterns I'd never fully articulated. How financial instability had shaped my relationships, my art, my entire approach to vulnerability. Do you like this boy? She asked simply. Yes, I answered, the single syllable inadequate for the complexity it represented. Does he respect your art, your goals, your boundaries? I thought of Marcus showing me his private workspace, teaching me photography fundamentals, never pushing beyond what I was ready to share. Yes. Then perhaps the question isn't whether you can afford to accept his help, she suggested, but whether you can afford to let pride cost you what you're building together. That night, I took the vintage camera outside, focusing on our modest Christmas lights reflected in freshly fallen snow. The winter sky stretched endless above our small neighborhood, stars brilliant in the clear air. I thought of Marcus in Aspen, medical crisis narrowly managed, perhaps looking at those same stars from his father's mountain retreat. The distance between us felt simultaneously vast and insignificant. Physical separation was temporary. The emotional barriers I'd constructed were the true obstacles, built over years of protective self-reliance, reinforced by fear disguised as pride. I raised the camera viewfinder to my eye, focusing on a single perfect snowflake caught on a pine branch. Through the lens, the world clarified, details becoming sharp, priorities aligning. The mechanism clicked as I captured the image, the sound echoing Marcus's words from the lighthouse. Sometimes we need different tools to see clearly. Tomorrow I would call him. Accept the scholarship offer. Begin dismantling the barriers I'd constructed. The thought brought both terror and relief. The vulnerability I'd been avoiding in art and life finally embraced not as weakness but as necessary connection. The photograph would likely be overexposed, my technique still novice. But perhaps that was fitting. Some things needed full illumination to be properly seen, even if the resulting image wasn't perfectly composed.